Deji was so sad to hear this. He told Ife that if she was not willing to marry him, then Tayo had to die. Ife immediately knelt down before the shrine and pleaded with the spirits to spare Tayo's life. Deji revealed to her that the spirits had accepted to take something else in exchange. He revealed that the spirits were demanding all her memories with Tayo. What this means is that Ife would be purged of all the memories she had ever shared with Tayo, even up to the day that they met. It would be as if Tayo never existed and Ife would live her life without ever remembering him. Ife arrived at her family house and was confronted by the sight of her own gravesite, a place where her family buried her blood-stained clothes, thinking that she was dead. For all these years, her mother and sister mourned her death, not knowing that she was alive and well in the city. Ife stared at her grave in disbelief, unable to move, as several thoughts ran through her mind. Her eyes overflowed with tears as she pondered on how she was going to face her own family. She walked into their house and caught sight of her mother, who fainted at the sight of her. Her younger sister Bumi screamed at the top of her voice on seeing Ife, thinking that she was a ghost. The neighbors, hearing her loud scream, rushed in to check what was happening when they caught sight of Ife and took to their heels. Everyone ran away in fear because they believed that they were seeing a ghost. Ife could not believe what was happening. She watched as everyone scampered for their safety and felt terrible for what she had done. "I faked my own death," Ife screamed at the top of her voice as she tried to convince the people that she was still alive. Her sister Bumi stared at her in disbelief as she asked Ife if she was really alive, and Ife, without saying a word, walked up to her sister and gave her a hug. "It is really you," Bumi said as tears poured down her eyes. Her sister, who she believed was long dead, was standing in front of her in the flesh. This was a moment that Bumi never imagined possible in her entire life. Ife, however, could not believe how much she had missed her younger sister Bumi, who was only 12 when she ran away. Bumi was all grown up now, and Ife was so delighted to see her again. Their mother, in that moment, regained consciousness and caught sight of her daughters in a big hug. It all seemed like a dream for her, to see her daughter Ife alive and well. Ife turned to see her mother, who looked astonished to see her. "You are alive?" she asked, as her voice shook in disbelief. Ife approached her mother and pleaded for her forgiveness, narrating all that happened and the reason why she decided to fake her own death to enable her run away. She watched as her mother burst into tears, revealing the joy that she felt in her heart to see her daughter again after so many years of mourning her death. Back in the city, however, Tayo struggled to live without Ife. He found himself dreaming about her daily, and his mother, seeing how withdrawn he had become, decided to introduce him to her friend's daughter Tamy, who just graduated from the university. Tamy was such a brilliant and beautiful young woman who had always admired Tayo from afar. She was so excited to know him better, but could not help but notice that Tayo was distant and preoccupied, as if his heart was elsewhere. His mother forced him to go on several dates with Tamy, who seemed to be a compassionate and loving girl. She even organized family dinners and outings, trying to foster a connection between Tamy and her son Tayo. Tamy too tried her best to win Tayo's affection, but noticed that he was always emotionally absent, as Tayo could not stop thinking about the woman that he loved. He did everything possible to take his mind off her, but nothing he did worked, as he always found himself comparing Ife to Tamy, wishing that she was her. His mother, desperate to see him happy again, advised him to marry Tamy, saying that he would grow to love her just as he loved Ife, and Tayo listened to his mother and asked Tamy to be his wife. Their relationship blossomed as Tayo began to divert his attention to Tamy, who was so delighted to be finally engaged to the man that she loved. They were getting married soon, and Tamy could could not wait to be his wife. One day, this was a week to their wedding, Tayo dropped Temi off at her house, saying that he had to meet up with his friend Kunle, who was waiting for him at their favorite spot. He promised to call her once he was home, and Temi bid him farewell as she watched him drive off. She got into her house, tired from the day's events, and decided to take a quick rest. As she sat on her bed, her thoughts wandered to her upcoming wedding. Temi was so excited and could feel butterflies in her stomach. Her entire family was going to come together to celebrate her special day with her, and the thought of this filled her with so much excitement. She went into her kitchen to prepare dinner, staring at her phone and wondering if she should call Tayo or not. He should still be with Kunle, she thought to herself, as she decided to give him more time to get home. After eating her dinner, Temi dozed off without knowing it. She woke up a few hours later to realize that Tayo had still not called. It was past midnight, and Temi decided to call his phone to confirm that he got home safe. She dialed his number, but his line seemed not to connect. She tried a few more times, but Tayo's number was still not connecting. Temi immediately called Kunle on the phone to ask if Tayo was still with him, and Kunle revealed to her that he had not seen Tayo all day. He thought Tayo was with her, so he did not bother to disturb him. Tayo told me he was meeting up with you this afternoon when he dropped me off at home. She replied Kunle, who said that he might be at his mother's. Temi immediately called Tayo's mother, who was wide awake at that time. Sorry to disturb you, ma. Please, is Tayo at your house? She asked his mother, who informed her that she hadn't seen Tayo on that fateful day. Temi began to panic, as she hoped that something terrible had not happened to him. She rushed off to his house to check if he was home and realized that Tayo was not home. Panicking, Temi quickly called Kunle again, informing him that Tayo was not home, and Kunle advised her to return home, saying that he would make a few calls to confirm if anyone had seen him, and Temi, despite being extremely worried, returned home hoping that by morning Tayo would have returned. Temi could not shake off the feeling that something terrible could have happened, so she prayed silently for his safe return as she sat up all night in bed worried. Kunle made a few phone calls to confirm if anyone had seen Tayo, but no one seemed to have seen him. By morning, Temi and Kunle arrived at Tayo's mother's house to inform her of Tayo's disappearance. Where could he have gone? Tayo's mother asked, as her mind drifted to the only place she believed her son could be. She informed Kunle to take her to Ife's village because she was so certain that Tayo had gone to see Ife. It was then that Temi realized that the man that she loved and was about to marry was in fact in love with another woman. Kunle narrated everything that happened to her, and Temi wept uncontrollably at the thought of losing Tayo to another woman. She prayed and hoped that their speculations were wrong, as she could not live with the realization that Tayo was in love with another woman. They arrived at Ife's village, and Temi was so shocked to realize that the young woman was an indigene of her mother's village, the village where she spent the better part of her childhood. They arrived at Ife's house, and Temi caught sight of her cousin Ife, who turned out to be the woman that Tayo was deeply in love with. She never knew that it was her cousin who they came to see, the same cousin who she thought had died so many years ago. Temi believed that Ife had passed away, so seeing her standing in front of her was a shock. Tears streamed down her face as everyone watched their emotional reunion. Temi and Ife were close cousins who grew up together and did practically everything together until Temi's mother remarried and moved to the city to live with her new husband. Not long afterwards, Temi was informed of her cousin's death, and this hit her so hard as she couldn't believe that she had lost her best friend. The grief was so overwhelming that she mourned Ife's loss for years. Now, standing before her was the cousin she thought was dead. It was a moment filled with shock. joy and confusion. Ife, you are alive? Temi cried out, tears streaming down her face as Ife nodded and hugged Temi back, overwhelmed by the unexpected reunion. As the emotions settled, Temi looked down and realized that Ife was pregnant. Everyone stared blankly at Ife's pregnant stomach as they all wondered if Tayo was the one responsible for the pregnancy. Tayo's mother, who had been standing there quietly, stepped forward to ask Ife if Tayo was the father. Ife, unable to answer the question, informed her that she had no idea who the father was, as she found it difficult to remember how the pregnancy came about. All she could remember was returning home to her family and realizing a few days later that she was pregnant. Tayo's mother, in that moment, knew that the pregnancy belonged to her son because she knew how faithful Ife was to Tayo before she lost all her memory of him. She stood there confused as she pondered on what to do. Temi could not believe that her cousin was pregnant for the man that she loved and was about to marry. Their wedding was in a few days, and Temi watched as her worst fear materialized before her eyes. Just as they stood there confused, Tayo's mother received a call from an unknown number saying that Tayo had just regained consciousness. They were directed to a hospital not too far from the village, so they all hurriedly rushed to go see Tayo. What had happened was that on that fateful day, after Tayo dropped Temi off at her house, he began to have doubts about his decision to marry Temi. He felt guilty for not being able to let go of Ife and love Temi, who deserved his full attention and love. The more he tried to take her off his mind, the more her memories lingered. Tayo drove aimlessly and found himself heading towards Ife's village. He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to see Ife one last time, hoping for closure. As he drove on the lonely road, which was not too far from Ife's village, heavy rain began to fall. The visibility was so poor and the road slippery. Tayo struggled to see the road ahead because of poor visibility. Suddenly, a speeding car appeared out of nowhere and approached him with speed. Tayo tried to swerve out of the road, but it was too late as there was a loud crash and everything went black. The accident was so gruesome as Tayo was rushed to a nearby hospital. Although he survived the accident, he was in a very critical condition and the doctors did everything possible to stabilize him. After several hours, Tayo regained consciousness and was able to give the doctors a number to call to alert his family of his accident. They arrived a few minutes later to see Tayo, whose eyes lit in excitement on seeing Ife. Temi stood there as she silently watched Tayo, the man that she loved, gaze lovingly at her cousin. She could see love in his eyes, a love that she had never experienced with Tayo throughout their time together. It was not long before Tayo sighted Ife's pregnant belly and began to wonder if the pregnancy was his. Several thoughts ran through his mind as he could not help but wonder if Ife had moved on with another man, and the thought of this sent shivers down his spine. Tayo looked at his mother, who told him that the pregnancy might be his because Ife found it hard to remember how she got pregnant. "This is good news," Tayo said excitedly as his eyes met that of Temi, who stood there devastated. Tayo, in that moment, saw himself hurting a good woman who had done nothing but shower him with love. Their wedding was only a few days away, and Tayo, although feeling pity for Temi, knew deep down that he had no atom of love for her. Seeing Ife pregnant was all the sign that he needed to know that his marriage with Temi was not meant to be. His happiness had always been with Ife, even if he knew that she couldn't remember a thing about him. He was willing to remind her of all the good times they had shared, even if it was going to take him a lifetime to do so. So Tayo, in that moment, decided to do the right thing by being honest with Temi. He confessed to her that he was still deeply in love with Ife and could no longer deny his feelings or pretend to be in love with her when truly he was in love with Ife. Temy listened to Tayo's confession, her heart breaking with each word that he uttered. Tears poured down her eyes, but Temy could not deny the truth, which was so glaring for anyone to see. Tayo, she said, her voice shaking as she spoke, I can't compete with the love you have for Ife. I want you to be happy, and if it means being with her, then I won't stand in your way. I love you so much, and Ife, being my cousin, would always be a part of my life. It is so unfortunate that life had to bring us all together in such an awkward way, but in all, I will never come in between the true and genuine love, which I see between you two. It hurts, but not as much as breaking a bond between two people who are clearly meant to be together. I deserve someone who loves me completely, and it's clear that your heart belongs to another. Tayo looked at Temi, his eyes filled with sorrow and regret. I'm so sorry, Temi. You deserve more than I can give you. You deserve someone who can love you fully without reservations. Tayo, seeing the pain in her eyes, pleaded with her for her forgiveness. He knew that Temi was such a beautiful soul, and it hurt him deeply to hurt her. With that, Temi left the hospital, her heart heavy, but her head held up high. Tayo watched her walk away, grateful for her grace and understanding, but also feeling the weight of his actions. As the days went by, Tayo and Ife returned to the city together. They got married and began to make plans for the arrival of their baby. However, life was not as simple as Tayo had hoped. Ife, still without her memories, felt like a stranger in her own home. The love Tayo felt for her was intense, but Ife could not reciprocate his love because of her inability to remember anything from their past. Tayo was like a stranger who she was getting to know for the first time, and Ife didn't seem to like him at all. They slept in separate rooms, and despite being married, Ife could not stand the presence of Tayo and insisted that they sleep in different rooms, even when Tayo believed that this would only drive them further apart. One afternoon, Tayo returned home with a gift that he got for his wife Ife. It was an expensive necklace that Ife had always wanted, so Tayo went the extra mile to customize the necklace in her name and couldn't wait to see the expression on her face when she finally receives it. He knocked excitedly at her door, eager to make her happy with the gift, and Ife came to the door and asked why he was disturbing her peace. He showed her the necklace, but instead of appreciating the gift that he got for her, she asked if it was because of the cheap necklace that he was disturbing her peace. Ife took the necklace from him and threw it in the trash. Tayo felt so disappointed as he looked forward to putting a smile on her face. He never expected such a reaction from her and was heartbroken to see the expensive necklace he got for her laying in the trash. You can't force what is not there, Ife said to Tayo, who could not hold back his tears. He returned to his room shattered and collapsed into his bed as he sobbed all through the day. He never believed that getting Ife to love him again would prove so difficult, despite all his efforts to remind her of all the good times that they shared together. Tayo had never felt so alone in his entire life. He missed the Ife who always made a conscious effort to make him smile, the Ife who was so appreciative of everything that he did for her, the Ife that he always held close to his heart as he slept, the one who loved him as much as he loved her. Tayo could remember vividly how life used to be before everything changed and was sad to see how emotionless Ife was to him. All he ever wanted was to make her happy, but she didn't seem interested in his good gestures. She was so dismissive of all his efforts, acting as though Tayo was a burden she couldn't wait to offload. The thought of this hurt Tayo badly as he hoped that Ife regains her memory soon. The next morning, Tayo woke up extremely early. He remembered how he used to prepare breakfast for Ife in bed and how she loved to be served breakfast in bed. Maybe if I serve her breakfast in bed, Ife would remember, he thought to himself as he happily rushed to the kitchen to whip up her favorite breakfast. Tayo spent hours in the kitchen, ensuring that he prepared the meal the way Ife liked it, hoping that this would at least make her happy. But this was not the case, as Ife told Tayo that she wasn't hungry. Her attitude towards him showed how ungrateful she was, as she not only rejected the meal, but also wanted Tayo never to cook for her again. Sad and disappointed, Tayo asked why she treated him with so much disdain, and Ife, without mincing any words, revealed to him that his presence irritated her. Tayo stood there and watched, as Ife continued to talk down on him. He had never felt this dejected in his entire life, and wondered why Ife decided to be so mean to him. Despite knowing all the efforts he was putting in to ensure that she was happy, his heart sank as he watched all his efforts being watered down by the woman that he loved. She was a completely different person from the Ife that he knew, who would have jumped up in excitement and thanked him for cooking her favorite meal. This version of Ife was so indifferent and devoid of any form of emotion. Her attitude towards him crushed his heart, as he could not understand how everything could feel so wrong when all he wanted was to make things right. Despite this, Tayo decided never to give up. He knew that the woman who loved him as much as he loved her was somewhere in there, locked away, and that one day he would succeed in freeing her from the bondage that had kept her bound. One night, as Tayo was about going to bed, Ife approached him to say that she wanted to discuss something important with him. Tayo's heart raced as he wondered what the problem could be. He sat across from Ife as he listened intently to what she had to say. "How did I ever fall in love with a man like you?" Ife said to Tayo, who could see the hatred in her eyes. His presence seemed to make her so irritable as she revealed to him that she only agreed to marry him because of the baby that was growing inside of her. With no atom of emotion, Ife informed Tayo that she was no longer interested in their marriage. She stated that she had tried so hard to love him but could not bring herself to doing so because they lacked connection. Ife, not caring how her words affected Tayo, went on to say that it was pointless for her to force something that wasn't there. She believed that Tayo was trying too hard to make her love him when she felt nothing for him. On this note, Ife suggested that they go their separate ways, giving each other the chance to find true love again. Tayo had never felt this bitter in his entire life. He felt as though the ground had been pulled out from under his feet. He looked at Ife as tears poured down his eyes. "Ife, please, we can walk through this. I know you can't remember our past, but we can create new memories together. I love you and I'm willing to do anything to make this work." Ife shook her head, her expression unchanging. "I'm sorry, Tayo. I just don't feel the same way. I don't love you, and I don't feel that I will ever love you again in my life. The sight of you disgusts me, and I don't think that this would ever work. So it is better we go our separate ways and find love again." Tayo's heart shattered to hear Ife speak with such finality. He never believed a day like this would ever come, where the woman who once loved him with all of her heart would stand before him like a stranger. Her cold stare stripped him of all the happiness that he had in his heart. Tayo reached out for her hand, but Ife pulled away, her face showing no sign of warmth or affection. The finality of her decision hit him like a boomerang as he felt utterly helpless, standing across from her, unable to connect with the woman that he loved. He knelt before her and pleaded for her to stay with him until she birthed their baby. Despite the fact that Ife gave Tayo every reason to hate her, Tayo found himself loving her even more. He hurt, but his heart had decided to love her regardless. Ife was almost due to deliver, and Tayo could not risk anything happening to her, so he pleaded with her to stay, assuring her that he would be of his best behavior, and Ife, knowing that her due date was close, agreed, saying that once she gives birth to their baby, she would leave and never return. The thought of this terrified Tayo, who could not imagine a life without Ife. Unsure of what to do, Tayo decided to speak to his friend Kunle, who advised him to be strong and patient, saying that Ife might change her mind once the baby is born. Tayo doubted this greatly because he knew that Ife only agreed to remain in his home because he pleaded with her to stay until she birthed their child. Kunle could see the distress in his friend's eyes. He pleaded with him to remain positive for the sake of his unborn child, and Tayo, although happy to meet their child soon, was conflicted because he could not stand to watch Ife leave. As the days went by, Ife and Tayo continued to live under the same roof, but the distance between them grew wider. Ife remained cold and detached, treating Tayo more like a roommate than a husband. All she cared about was birthing their child, as she could not wait to finally leave Tayo to find happiness for herself. Tayo, on the other hand, stood there as he watched his whole world crumble before his eyes. Ife, the love of his life, was planning on leaving him once she birthed their child. The thought of this made him restless as he began to lose sleep and even stopped eating. One night, whilst Tayo sat in his room restless, he heard a very loud scream coming from Ife's room. Ife had gone into labor, and Tayo quickly rushed her to the hospital. His heart ached with the realization that this could be the last time they would share such an intimate moment together. He stayed by her side throughout the labor, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement to her. Despite her cold demeanor, Tayo could not bear to leave her alone during such a critical time. The labor was so long and painful, and Ife struggled through each contraction. As she pushed, something unexpected began to happen. With each wave of pain, her memories began to flood back to her. Ife saw flashes of her life with Tayo, their first meeting, their shared laughter, and their deep love for each other. The memories grew stronger as she finally remembered the love that they once shared. As the minutes went by, the memories became more vivid. It was as if the physical pain of childbirth was breaking down the wall, which blocked off all her memories of Tayo. The veil was finally broken as Ife pushed out their baby. In that moment, Ife remembered all that she was to Tayo and how much she loved him. Holding their newborn baby in her arms, Ife looked up at Tayo as tears poured down her eyes. "Tayo," she whispered, her voice filled with so much emotion, "I remember everything." Tayo's eyes widened in shock as he could not believe that Ife had finally regained her memory. Overwhelmed with joy, Tayo squeezed Ife's hand as he could not believe that his love Ife had finally returned to her original self. A day that Tayo dreaded for weeks, thinking that his wife Ife would finally leave him, turned out to be the best day of his life as Tayo could not contain his joy. Ife looked down at their baby, who was a beautiful symbol of their love and new beginning, and said to Tayo, "I never wanted to forget you. Tayo, I'm so sorry for everything, for pushing you away, for the pain I caused you, the confusion, all of it. I love you so much, Tayo, and nothing on earth will ever take that away from us." Ife said, as Tayo smiled through his tears, assuring her that none of it mattered because his prayers had been answered. Tayo was so overjoyed to have Ife back in his life. He quickly called his mother, who rushed to the hospital to meet her grandchild. Tayo's mother was so delighted to see that Ife's memory had returned. She apologized to Ife for all the terrible things that she did to her in the past, promising to make it up to her. And Ife was so happy to see how much Tayo's mother now loved her. She felt a deep sense of relief and joy, knowing that they could all move forward as a family. Tayo's mother, overwhelmed with emotion, embraced Ife warmly, expressing her happiness at seeing her son and daughter-in-law united once again. As they celebrated the birth of the new baby, the atmosphere was filled with love and laughter. Tayo's mother, holding her grandchild for the first time, could not hold back her tears of joy. "This child is a blessing," she said, looking lovingly at Ife and Tayo. "May he bring us all closer together." Ife and Tayo named their baby boy Ayo, meaning joy in Yoruba language, symbolizing the happiness and hope that had returned to their lives. The family began to heal and grow stronger together, with Tayo and Ife's love serving as the foundation for their new beginning. They moved into a new home, away from the memories of the past struggles, and started building a life filled with love, respect, and understanding. In the days that followed, Tayo and Ife worked to rekindle their love. They shared stories of their past, laughed at old memories, and created new ones. Ife also reached out to her cousin Tamy, expressing her deep regret for the pain that she caused her. Tamy, showing great maturity and grace, accepted Ife's apology and wished her happiness. They parted on good terms, with Tamy moving on with her life, grateful for the lessons she had learned along the way. As the years went by, Tayo and Ife continued to cherish every moment that they spent together. They were so grateful to have their love back, and Ife thanked Tayo for never giving up on her, even when she gave him a million reasons to. The lesson to be learned from this story is that true love requires patience and forgiveness. It can sometimes demand waiting, understanding, and forgiving, even when it seems challenging. Holding on to grudges or past mistakes can prevent growth and happiness in one's life, whilst forgiveness can open unimaginable doors and build deeper relationships. Human relationships are complex and multifaceted. It requires continuous effort and open communication to enable parties work through their relationships and avoid misunderstandings. The story therefore encourages us to cherish our loved ones, be patient and forgiving, and always strive to build relationships on a foundation of love and mutual respect. You do not throw a baby out with the bathwater just because they are wailing out of control. You find a way around it just because you love them. I hope you enjoyed the story.